Hello, I'm Travis Mills, and I make westerns.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have another great guest, Brian Christensen, a stunt man, a stunt coordinator. We'll talk all about that. We had the chance to work together this past year, and we'll touch base about that as well. So thank you, Brian, for doing this. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Travis.
You're based in Chicago, is that right?
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yes, I'm in Chicago. That's where my house is, and it's a ton of snow out there right now. I'm looking to get away. So if you need me in Arizona, just let me know. I'm there.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for you to hire me, not the other way around.
Yeah. Well, we're working on it. We're working on it. We're trying to get things going. A lot of irons in the fire. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. I love that.
That's a lovely shirt you're wearing.
Oh, yeah, we got to talk about that. I'm wearing Brian's stunt company shirt. We both are. And I love your Captain Blood poster back there. Those listening to this won't be able to see it unless you watch the video version, but he has a Captain Blood, which was one of my favorite films when I was a kid. And what's that one? The other poster? I can't quite see it.
This Hunter, Steve McQueen.
Oh, his last film.
The Hunter was Steve McQueen. Second last film. The last film, I think, was Tom Horn.
Yeah, I think they were made around the same time. Sure. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. That's cool.
That's cool. And then you see this one. Can you see that Liberty Valance one?
Oh, I love that film. That's a great one. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's
one of my absolute favorites.
So, Brian, how did you get started in the movie business? Were you immediately in the stunt world, or did you come at it a different angle? And where did the interest come from?
Well, I was born in a small town in Canada called Thunder Bay, right on the head of Lake Superior, which is even worse than this, snow-wise, weather-wise. So I watched a lot of movies when I was a kid, a lot of TVs, and there was a show called The Wild Wild West. Now you guys only remember that travesty Will Smith version. The TV series was back in the '60s, and it was sold as James Bond in the Wild West. So that was their pitch line, and they got Robert Conrad, tight pants, all that kind of stuff. And I watched that show religiously as a young boy, and I would watch him do these fights, and I'd be like, okay, I can see he's not really hitting those guys. And then the next week I'd watch the episode, and one of the thug cowboys was like, wait a second, that's the guy I saw him beat up last week. And then it dawned on me, that's a job. I want that. That's the job I want. So, I worked in a camera store, and I got to use a lot of cameras. So I would stage these little fights and stuff like that. And I really kind of lucked out on throwing a punch at one of my buddies, and the camera angle was just right. And I saw, that's how you do it. That's how the camera and the stunt action works together. So that's basically what I did. As soon as I got out of high school, I moved to California. Well, I'm lying. I moved to Toronto first, and then I moved to California. I started working in Toronto, but at that time, there was only one TV show, and it was called The Littlest Hobo, and I worked on it. And but then, maybe you get one day a year or something like that. So it wasn't enough for me. So I moved to California, and I just, lived in obscurity for many years trying to break into the business, and just stuck with it, doing crap jobs, moving furniture and working as a bartender, doing everything, and just keeping plugging away. And then finally, you get in with the right group of guys. And then I got lucky enough to be hired to do a show in China, a live show, a Western show. I coordinated that. So I got to travel to China, and then that led me to Thailand, and then, so I got to see the world on someone else's dime, which was very nice. And then, got back, and I got on Die Hard, my first big feature. And that was it. Then pretty much, you start working away.
Absolutely. Yeah, your first credit, according to IMDb, that I noticed was a stunt rigger on Superman 2, right? The Donner cut is what's credited. So what was
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
what was that all about?
Well, that was later actually. That was uh, I got called to do that. They were doing a reshoot of Lois falling off the building,
Hmm.
and so it was down in Hollywood Studios, I think, and we just went down there and basically safetied the girl who was doubling Lois, um, just falling off a building. I don't even. I was like, this was years after Superman had come out, so
Okay.
I guess Richard Donner was just adding something to it. You know what I mean? I don't really understand. I've never seen the Donner cut. I don't know that what's the difference in it, but maybe it's maybe our work showed up in there. Who knows?
Yeah, it's been a while since I saw it, so I can't comment on it. So how do you train to be a stuntman or stunt performer, I guess is the politically correct
Yeah.
term these days? Is it all through
Yes.
experience?
No. Well, no. I mean, there were schools. One of those schools in California I actually did attend, and I mean, it was one of these. No stunt coordinator was really going like, "Oh, you went to that school? You're my man." It's nothing like that. But it did give you the basics of everything. And it did introduce me to friends that I have today. So, I mean, the guys who stuck in the business, we are still friends today. And a lot of people went through it. Now, then a few years later, through another friend, I met an old stunt guy in Topanga Canyon, Horseshit Hill, who was named Lenny Gear, and he was in a million movies. He had trained animals, trained horses, all that kind of stuff. And every Sunday we would go to his ranch and literally just kick the crap out of each other. And we do fights and we do horses and we do motorcycles and we do high falls and we do and he didn't charge anything. It was, but you had to be invited. So I did get invited to that. And he was a big influence, not only in the physical training of it, but also the um, philosophical aspect of it. I mean, he was always like, anybody could do what you guys do, but not really. I mean, he was a gruff old guy, and he was like a father figure. So he was awesome. And most of the guys who trained with him, Hal Needham did, Ronnie Rondell, but those guys were before me, but they became big players. They actually invented Stunts Unlimited, or they came up with it with Glenn Wilder. So that was really what I imagine is my big thing. Now, as far as today's world, there are tons of places that people go to work out, train. Tempest in free running in California. Parkour is a big part of the business now. Martial arts. So any training you take. I mean, I used to train the high falls out in Silmar. At a high fall tower, we just coach guys, teach them how to do it, bring them up by stages. You start here, you go there, and then you go to the top. Um, and Bob Yerkes has a place. He still does it out there, and um, you just learn your skills everywhere. Just keep working on them. That's all. I mean, still even today. I mean, I train with my son, who's a stunt guy, and we'll work out with some of the guys. We used to run Midwest stunt clinics out here. Um, it's just constantly learning some, learn new skills. Just learn new skills.
Absolutely. What are, not everybody listening to this will really know a lot about the stunt world. Can you kind of break down like the different positions, the coordinator, the rigger, the performer? Can you talk about some of that stuff and how it works?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the stunt coordinator, obviously, he's the boss. He gets hired by the production company, meets with the director and the director of photography, and they form an alliance. Now, depending on the show, I mean, if you've got a lot of wire work to do, now I have my own, rigging company. I have all my own gear and stuff like that. you will be either you bring on a head rigger, which I've been hired as a head rigger a number of times, or you just bring on guys who are riggers, who know how to tie knots, who know the physics of the whole thing and know how to work the equipment, which is number one, of course. And then, then you will find usually you'll find a double for 1X or the lead actor, you know. He's number one on the call sheet. 1X is his stunt double. So you find that guy and he's the good fit. And sometimes the actor has a guy that he's used before. And usually you want to bring that guy in if you can, because that makes the actor more comfortable. And and then you do the same with the women. Not if not, you find the performers, and then you have also day players who come in for, like, if there's in Transformers we'd have 30 stunt people come in, just driving, like running from cars and fake robots and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically how it works as far as the hiring process goes. um, and then the stunt coordinator has to do all the paperwork and you know fill the reports out and all that kind of good stuff. He's head of the department basically.
Absolutely, yeah. So you talked about Die Hard being your first big American gig, right? Any memories from that, or any lessons
Hmm.
learned while working on it?
Oh yeah. Well, I was hired by a guy named Kenny Bates, who's still a good friend of mine now, and I've gone to Abu Dhabi with him, and I've gone to India with him. He does all that kind of stuff now, and he was the man who was Hans Gruber falling off the building. And he was also Bruce Willis with the hose around him jumping off the building. Same guy did both those stunts. And one was what's called a decelerator, and that was the hose one, where he jumped off from the very top, and just gets stopped, like partially down, and then that whole sequence of him breaking the glass and stuff go from there. And then the other one was a descender, which is a cable fall, which he did 360 feet all the way to an airbag on the ground. And I was one of the riggers on that setup. And prior to that, we had done a jump off Universal, and so that's how at that point I was like, okay, rigging is, you can do that when you're old. When your hair turns this color, you can still do that sort of thing. When you don't want to get hit by any more cars, you can still tie a knot and do some of that. But that was a phenomenal movie. Bruce Willis was he's just a TV guy at that point. And I remember going to the premiere of that movie, and the director, John McTiernan, rah, big crowd, and Bruce Willis, crickets, nothing. But I mean, since then he's gone on to, do many, many things. So yeah, it was great. It was great. And I still get the residual check from that every year because, as we all know, Die Hard is a Christmas movie, right?
Right.
So there's always a little something in my stocking every year from that.
That's cool. That's cool. You dabbled in, at least again, according to IMDb, which I know is not always accurate. You've got some special effects credits on movies like Suburban Commando and Lawnmower Man. I was curious.
Commando.
Yeah, did you kind of dabble in that for a little while?
I did. I worked at a place called Real Effects, which is in Hollywood, and it's still in business. And it's like one of those times when I first moved there. You need a job. And rather than be a furniture mover, I was like, how about getting a job that's in the business somehow? And so I did. I got a job for the effects house because I knew how to, mechanical, all that kind of stuff. And they put me on a couple of movies, and it was good because then I could meet coordinators and stuff like that, and still be involved in it. That's what my youngest son Eric, he does. He's a reading electrician, IOTC guy, and he also is a stunt man. So I mean, stunt. You're not always working unless you're very lucky. You work a week here, and then you might not work for, a month or two or something, and at the beginning you gotta make a living. So, but that was fun. I got to meet Hulk Hogan and the Undertaker, who it's like I don't even believe I'm in the same species as these guys because they're just like giant men. And then later on in my career, when I was acting in Be Cool, I got to meet, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, who I just was like, this guy's even bigger than those guys, it seems. I mean, he's just a monster of a man, but very nice guy.
That's cool. I also noticed that you have some uncredited work on IMDb. Is it hard for stunt people to get credits and kind of get credit for their work?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the rule is the Screen Actors Guild rule is that they they only have to give 50 credits to the performers. I mean, to the stunt guys. So, like on a movie like The Italian Job, which, I was on it for a long time, I'm not listed. You know what I mean? It's like it's random. It's so random. And then, I'm on some piece of junk, which I not really, I'd rather not be on maybe, like, Maniac Cop 7 or something like that. It's like, you get the credit. No, but there is no hard and fast rule. You can't say, "Hey, I want my name in the credits." They just they don't have time. They won't do it. You know what I mean? You're running an uphill battle or fighting. I don't even know what the phrase is. You're pushing a boulder up the hill and fighting a battle at the same time. I don't know, but it's not really work. Is it? For us, it's not really. Yeah, it's nice because then you're friends. But now with IMDb, you can kind of make sure you go on that at least, and everybody uses it. And it's also, let's say face it, it's not the most accurate. I mean, I've seen some guys have credits on movies I was on and go like, wait a second, that guy was a precision driver on this movie. He was not a stunt guy. He was a precision driver. There's a big difference, you know. But regardless, whatever people get credit. You got to get credit somehow. But as long as the residuals and the money still comes in, it's all good.
I guess that's what matters most for sure. Another film that you did
Right.
that people will recognize is U.S. Marshals. I was curious if you want to tell the Tommy Lee
Oh, yeah.
Jones story or if it's probably something you don't want to talk about.
Got a minute?
Yeah, definitely.
My Terror on the Prairie Cup. I wanted to
Oh,
show you
I
that.
love it. It's awesome.
All right, yeah, so here it is. Here's the Tommy Lee Jones story. So I was playing one of the marshals in the plane, and we had 30 stunt guys. They're all stunt guys playing prisoners and marshals. So Gary Davis is the stunt coordinator. We're on this big gimbal and a fuselage of a plane for the interior shots. So the stunt coordinator goes, I want to turn this plane upside down and have you guys hang for 5 minutes and then turn it back up and then turn it back up. Basically what he was saying was, everybody, I don't want to hear any complaints when you guys are hanging upside down. I don't want to hear anybody crying, anything like that. And, we're all stunt guys. We're all like, yeah, we're cool with that, right? And then he goes, and then you, me, and a couple other guys, you are going to release and come down. Now we just had a regular belt. We had harnesses and stuff like that, but it was almost like the regular belt worked just as well. So we did that and we practiced that, and we had to have our okay. So now you're upside down. You're on your right arm is the overhead bin. Your left arm is open space. You've got another 3 feet before you hit the ceiling, right? So we all learned, okay, now you have to undo your seatbelt opposite of the way you normally would. So you'd have to do it with your left hand rather than your right, because your right hand is over your head, so you don't just fall crashing into the overhead bin. So we all rehearsed that. We all practiced that. Cliff Happy was Tommy Lee Jones's double. He came in and he rehearsed for Tommy, which so Tommy could watch the video. So Tommy Lee Jones comes in on the day we're shooting. First of all, he sits down, he's right in front of me, and there's a stunt guy diagonal from me. And this guy was trying to be a nice helper. And he said to Tommy Lee Jones, he goes, "Hey, Mr. Jones, just remember that you have to release with your left hand, not your right." Well, Tommy Lee Jones was a very smart man, Rhodes Scholar, Al Gore's roommate, all that kind of stuff. Uh, he kind of took umbrage to the guy coaching him on how to do it. So he said, "Yeah, well, yeah, I saw the rehearsal. I saw what Cliff did. And it started escalating, and pretty soon he's just like tearing this guy a new one. Now I'm sitting right behind him, and I can see the guy and the stunt guy, and the stunt guy can see me. So I'm making faces and I'm pretending I'm laughing. I'm having a good old time. Well, anyway, director comes in, tries to defuse it. Stunt coordinator comes in, tries to defuse it. Nobody can. So we just go ahead and do it. So now the plane goes upside down, and Tommy Lee Jones is number one to release. I'm number two. So he goes upside down, and I see his hands panicking because the world's a different place when you're upside down, for sure. So he puts the wrong hand up. He puts his left hand up, which is in space, and then releases with his right hand, and gravity takes over. He lands right on his noggin, falls into the what is the roof, which is now the floor, and I see him, and his eyes are like, like the cartoons with the cuckoo birds flying around his head and all that kind of stuff. I release, land like a cat. He gets up and he's, to his credit, he goes, "Help that man over there," or something. He does his whatever, not his line, but a line, and he runs out off frame, and then they cut, and the director comes in and goes, obviously he's rung his bell. So the director comes in and goes, "Oh, I think there was a little too much smoke in that one." Tommy Lee Jones literally pushes the guy against the wall and goes, "Fucking smoke was fine," and just leaves, walks down the stairs. He's not on the bottom stairs when 30 stunt guys erupt in laughter. Obviously he can hear it. But if you watch that movie, U.S. Marshals, it's on every weekend on TBS or something like that. Watch for that scene because it's legit, and they kept it in the movie because that's all they had, and it worked.
That's pretty great.
Aside from that, he's a he's a wonderful guy. Aside from that, he's a great guy.
Hey, you might end up getting hired on another Tommy Lee Jones movie, so who knows? So we both worked with Jeff Dawn this past year. We'll talk about Terror on the Prairie a little bit later, but you and Jeff crossed paths before. I think the first time was on Be Cool with John Travolta and The Rock, like you said. Jeff's a great guy. You have a very cool character in that. Talk about working with Jeff and the makeup department. Stunt coordinating or stunt work, I just didn't really realize how incredible the whole doubling process could be until we worked on Terror together. Because, they made me look like 3 different people on the film. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Dawn is, we can't even call him Jeff Dawn. We have to call him Oscar-winning Jeff Dawn. He's a fantastic guy, and I can't tell you how pleased I was to see him in Montana. When I heard he was on the show, I was just like, "Oh my God!" This, because we got close on Be Cool because I was cast as the hairy Russian. I had a beard and I had long hair, and I think it was late January or something. I had just grown my hair all through the Christmas season and stuff just to see what happened. And my friend Kurt Bryant, who was coordinating that movie, I work with him a lot. And he goes, "Well, find some guys who could play this hairy Russian guy." And so I was getting together photos and stuff like that because I was going to play a part of a record executive, clean cut, driving the Porsche and having a little car wreck or something like that. Not much of a part. And so as I was getting guys and submitting them, I kind of was like, well, maybe I'll just take a picture of myself looking like this and submit that. So that's what I did. And I got the part. So, as the director picked me, F. Gary Gray. So I was like, that's phenomenal. So I mean, I had the beard and the long hair, but I mean, I have no chest hair whatsoever. And the whole gag is Travolta grabs me by the chest hair and throws me through a glass counter. So Jeff Don. So I go in for a makeup test. He puts this hair piece on me like a vest, like a dicky, like a dicky of hair. And then he wanted to flock, what's called flock. So he puts glue on my neck, and you hold on to like a electrode or something, and he like it spits out like little tiny hairs. And I mean, it was just like very irritating and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it looked good. It looked fantastic. He knows what he's doing, and he put the big eyebrows on me, and he was like, I think we should put some big nose hairs coming out. And I'm like, nah, that's where I draw the line. Draw the line on the nose hairs there, Jeff. But, but so then we did it. And so every day it was, I mean, it was one of those things. I mean, I know guys who's, done big jobs where they've been in the makeup chair for 3 or 4 hours. I think my first time in there was about an hour and a half or something like that. And then it got, they streamline it as they get better at it. But the great thing, of course, was then we did the stunt. Um, Everything worked great. Travolta, wonderful man, just fantastic. And now, all these years later, I meet Jeff on the movie that we did, Terror on the Prairie, and he goes, I still have that hair thing, that Dicky hairy Russian thing. He goes, would you want that? And I'm like, would I want it? Are you kidding? Of course I want it. That's cool. So I have it. I have that thing now.
That's
It's in my,
hilarious.
it's in my Be Cool book, because I have books with scripts and stuff like binders of different movies that I've done, and I put photos in there, and kind of like a little keepsake. You know what I mean? It's like an album for me, and I still have that. So yeah, it was great to see Jeff. I hope we work together again. All of us. That was fun.
Yeah, we had an incredible team. Like I said, we'll definitely touch base about that. You've worked with some pretty incredible, not just actors, but directors too. I mean, Christopher Nolan, Michael Bay, these are some of the biggest directors in the business. What
Yeah.
do you look for in a director? Like, what are the best qualities in terms of the director's collaboration with you as a stunt performer or stunt coordinator?
The thing is, I mean, I did a lot of work with Michael Bay. We did, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years or whatever it was, a lot of the Transformers, the Platinum Dune horror movies that he owns, Platinum Dune, all that kind of stuff. And I worked on one of the Transformers, and then right after that went to the Dark Knight. And quite honestly, the difference between Michael Bay and Christopher Nolan is basically night and day. Michael Bay he's insane. I mean, he's just, he's very amped up. He's very, a lot of yelling, a lot of bullhorn, that kind of stuff. I mean, he's makes billion-dollar movies. You know what I mean? And they're all successful. But you're in for 6 months of stress, right? I mean, it's just like you're constantly, call sheet means nothing. It's just like, we're not doing that. We're doing this. And then it's like, oh, okay, we're doing that, I guess. Um, but like I say, then you're going to get yelled at some point. He's going to choose you to yell at. And I knew I was in trouble when he knew my name. So I think that was Transformers 3. And I was like, when he said my name out loud, I was like, oh, I'm done now. I'm finished. But anyway, going from that to the Dark Knight, funny little story here is like I played one of the fake Batman, like the vigilante Batman in the Dark Knight. And then at one point, the real Batman comes in and he kind of kicks us, beats us all up. Well, we did we did a like 3 or 4 days of rehearsal with his double, with the Batman double, and we did this big elaborate fight with all the fake Batman, and he's coming through us, bing bong boom. He's like going through us like butter and all that kind of stuff. And we had, I don't know, probably 10 moves, something like that. And Christopher Nolan, when we're about to shoot it, he comes in, he's got his tumbler of tea and overcoat on, and we start doing the fight. And about three moves in, he just goes, "That's enough of that. Let's move on." And it's like, we got a lot more. There's a lot more that could. And he's just like, no, 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 that's enough. You know what I mean? He's so calm and mellow that it was just such a difference from being with Michael Bay. But that's they're both fantastic directors. You know what I mean? They both are just different ways of working. You know,
Yeah,
I enjoyed them
absolutely.
both.
Yeah, I've heard that Nolan is, he likes a very quiet set. He doesn't allow cell phones around. He's got all these kind of rules for having a very
No,
focused environment. So that's interesting.
yeah. Well, at that at that time, I'm sure it still is. You know, Dark Knight and Transformers both. It was like there was a strict no cell phone rule. Um, and then I did Man of Steel, and they're all very paranoid because that was the first Superman movie, and they wanted to make sure that there's no picture of the of what's his name, Henry Cavill, in the outfit before it's released. So they wanted to confiscate our phones, and I was just like, I'll just leave my phone in the hotel. I don't want you to confiscate it. I'm not going to take pictures. On the Dark Knight, the coordinator came up to us almost on a daily basis and said, like, hey, there's been some photos leaked of the set and stuff like that. And I finally said to him, I'm like, look, man, we're stunt guys. We're happy to be here. We're making a ton of money. It's like nobody's going to risk getting fired for taking a picture. That what you could put on your social media. It's like I said, it's not us. I said we're shooting on the streets of Chicago. There's 1,000 eyes on us right now. Said, and he's like, yeah, yeah, I know, but I gotta make the speech, and so, but having said that, I do know guys who have done that, have taken a picture and gotten fired off a show for doing it. And to me, it's ridiculous. It's like why would you risk your career and your reputation doing something like that? So hopefully most of the young performers know better. And I know my son, I've instilled that into him. You never take photos. And then of course when a movie is released, if you're on Instagram or Facebook or something, that's when you'll see 1,000 pictures of the stunt guys posting 1,000 photos, which is fine because then the movie's out, so you're allowed to. But we all sign NDAs. We're not, we know not to do it, and still people do it sometimes, I guess.
Now I'm going to ask you if you're up for it to tell one more story at least. I heard it already when we were probably having drinks at the bar in Montana. Let's talk
Oh
about
boy, do I
Mark.
have to go get a shot of tequila?
Exactly. Mark
Oh,
Wahlberg,
Wahlberg.
the fighter, David O. Russell. You got a great story about that. Can you share that?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, David O. Russell has. I know he has a reputation. He's pretty tough director, or has been. He got in fisticuffs with George Clooney on Three Kings, and you know screamed at Lily Tomlin. And I don't know, a whole thing. So you know they flew me out to Boston to play this part where basically I just had to say a couple of lines and get beat up. And that's the coordinator was a friend of mine. He knew I could do it, and I'm like, do you want a Boston accent? He goes, well, yeah, that's why I hired you. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So we get there on the set. First of all, David Russell comes up to me, and he's looking at me, and he just puts his hand on my head like this and just starts talking to me while he's messing up my hair. Just like it's nothing. Hey, he didn't ask permission. No, I'm just kidding. And then so I'm like, okay, I'll just go along with this. And so we start the scene, and Mark Wahlberg comes up to me and he goes, and I'd worked with him on the Italian Job. So I mean, I didn't really have a lot of interaction with him on that show, but it's like an opener to a conversation. And he goes, and Christian Bale was there, and of course I worked with him on Dark Knight, although I had no conversations, no one did, on the Dark Knight while he was Batman. Now that he was Dickie Eklund, everybody talked to him. He talked to everybody. He was a totally different guy. Um, but so anyway, so Wahlberg says, "Well, how do you want to do this?" And I said, look, I know the guys you're boxing with. I know, they told me about the boxing scenes, all that kind of stuff. It's very legit. I said, this has to be legit too. So let me have it, just slap me. And then, so we did. So the first take, I come in there, I do my line, I insult Amy Adams. I kind of start turning my head towards him. Smack. He gives me the smack, pushes me down onto the bar. I cry like a little girl. Sorry, I'm sorry. And then I leave. I'm like, oh. And then they do the rest of the whole scene. And I'm like, well, okay, cool. That was easy. And then they go, well, we're going to do it again. And so then we did it again. And now Christian Bale decides he wants to run in there and like start kicking me and punching me and stuff like that. I'm like, I'll just go along with it. I'll react to what he's doing. And he was having a good time. And I was like, okay. Well, anyway, 13, 14 takes later, I'm starting to think, why can't we just pick this up from after I get slapped? You know what I mean? But, I'm like, I'm not complaining. I'm not going to say a word. And I'm just going to take it. And so then he does it one time, and I thought I'd be Mr. Funny, right? And I said, geez, are you getting tired? Because it didn't seem like that last one had much on it. Well, that was a mistake. That was a stupid thing to say, obviously, to Mark Wahlberg. The next one he gave me completely rung my bell. I was Tommy Lee Jones on the floor almost. There was like the cuckoo birds flying, but I stayed with it and all that kind of stuff. And we kept doing it. I think we did it 18 times. And I was getting pretty beat up. And Christian Bale was cool. He's like coming in there, punching me out every time, and blah, 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 and doing improvising and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, finally at the end of the night, we were done. And now, unlike what he said on Conan, I didn't say, "Are we going to do this much longer?" It does make a funnier punchline, but it's not what I said, because I would never say that. I was, I'm a pro, man. So anyway, we're outside and it's the middle of the night in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I'm just like, man, that was cool. And we start talking about Italian Job and blah blah blah. He's such a good dude, such a good dude. I went home to the hotel. I was going to fly out the next day. I took off my shirt. I am just black and blue from smashing into that bar. My eyes are all puffy. My face is all puffy. And when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, that's 10 slaps in. I could just tell by the way my face was. But I was cast as drunk guy, which a lot of people consider typecasting. But I thought. But anyhow, so that's the story of the fighter. And I'm sometimes on the TV version, they will leave in the Christian Bale coming in and helping out. But mostly in the theatrical version, they cut it right after Mark Wahlberg slaps me out. They didn't even do the rest of the scene; just cut it out. But it's a great movie. It was a great movie. It actually, it was up for Best Picture. Melissa Leo won, and Wahlberg was up for it. And I remember when the Oscars were coming on, like, because they played that clip on Conan, my clip with me in it. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope they play my clip on the Oscars, because then at least I'll be seen by 1 billion people or whatever the audience for the Oscars is. But they chose not to. I think they were wrong. Of course, I had no say in that. But
that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that story. So you've had to do your fair share of acting over the years. Like, sometimes you're obviously doubling and it doesn't involve much acting, but in other circumstances like this and Be Cool, you had to do some acting. Did you just kind of learn that as you went along in the stunt business?
No, I was always kind of a ham bone. I was into theater. My favorite in high school was the theater department. I would skip science and then come back for theater. You know what I mean? And then when I got to Los Angeles, I studied acting. I went to an acting class, all that kind of stuff. And I went to the Groundlings and I made it to the second stage of the Groundling Theater where, improvisational comedy and, any kind of learning. And that Groundling experience really was like gives you when you walk into an audition room, it gives you the confidence to just be stupid or silly or just commit to something, no matter what it is. You commit to the part and you can focus on it. So for every stunt performer should have some acting chops. They're and now, now you watch a movie, like if you see me come on the screen to say something, well, this guy's going to get thrown down the stairs, so, or something bad's going to happen to that guy. So, when I'm watching a movie and I see one of my buddies come out and they say something, I'm like, watch this guy, he's going to get killed right here, or something's going to happen to him, and that's part of it, because that way the producer doesn't have to hire two people, right? They don't have to hire an actor and a stuntman. They just hire a stunt guy who can act, because every actor will tell you that they can do stunts, but they can't. They just can't. Most of them can't.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
Cowboy Cerrone on our show, he definitely could,
Oh
but
yeah.
he also works as a stuntman. You know what I mean? He also works as a stunt guy. So, he was very good. Everybody on that show that was good, like Gina Carano, and you know, she, when I saw her, when I first met her, I said, do you want to double?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, of course not. Why would you?" I knew she wouldn't. You'd never find anybody who's as good as her
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Montana, anyway.
Well, she's an athlete, you know. So let's talk about Terror. We
Yeah,
made we
they
ma-
both are. Yeah.
Yeah, we made this movie last year in October and November with Dallas Sonnier, Bonfire Legend. It's going to be released by Daily Wire. How did you? Everybody's got their story of how they came to that production. How did you get hooked up with that crew? You never worked with them before.
No, I didn't, but I had worked with Chris Bailey, the special effects coordinator. I worked with him a ton. I worked with him on a TV series. I brought him on a TV series. I worked with him on a movie. I've worked with him on half a dozen music videos. Um, and I had just worked with him in Nashville on a Yellow Wolf series of music videos. He's a Southern white rapper. I'm sure he's
Okay.
one of your favorites. Um, no, anyway, whatever. Who cares, right? We're in the movie business. We go where we're circus folk. We go where we're told. Um, so I had just worked with him, and he called me up, and I guess they had a stunt coordinator who had dropped out for one reason or another. I don't know who it is. I don't. It's not any of my concern. But he asked me if I would be willing to do this movie, and if he could put my name in to do this movie, basically. And I said, I just finished doing a pilot for Comedy Central and then doing those videos and stuff. And I was like, "What? Well, tell me about it." And he goes, "Well, it's Gina Carano's in it." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. I met her at the premiere of Haywire many years ago." I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of that would be fun." And he goes, "And it's a western. It's being shot in Montana." And I'm like, "I'm in. That's it. I'm in." And then so western. I haven't done western since I did the Wild West show and rode in a rodeo and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like I've been waiting all my life for a western. And so then I got a call from Amanda and Buzz and those guys, and we had a nice, pleasant conversation, just like you and I are having right now. So it's um, so they were comfortable with me, and then they arranged a call with me and Michael Polish, the director, and he's such an easy guy to get along with. I would do every movie with him. Um, and that was that. And then next thing I was in Montana meeting you guys, and it
Oh,
was great.
I'm so glad you ended up being our stunt coordinator. I was part of the pre-production process and some of the hiring process, at least giving my input, not making any decisions, right? And I won't say who and how, but there was one person they were considering hiring as a stunt coordinator that was recommended by someone on the team. And I said, does this person have a reel or a resume? And the reel was a video of them trotting on a horse. And I pulled the powers that be aside and said, this person cannot be our stunt coordinator. We need a real stunt coordinator. So thank goodness we ended up with you.
Well, that can I just say one thing here? It's like, with all the new markets, with all the need for content, with all the streaming platforms. I mean, there are guys who hung up their shingle and said they're a stunt coordinator, and everybody and their sister is a stunt man. You know what I mean? It's nowadays. It's like, and then you talk to some of these people and you ask them a question, and they can't answer it. They don't really know. So my philosophy is stunts are important. If you do them wrong, somebody goes to the hospital, or worse. So there's a lot to be said for experience. You know what I mean? It's like, and I come with my own gear. I got a magic trailer. It's got everything in there that you need for any movie. And they saw that on this show. And, so it's not always about the guy who does it for $100 less, or whatever. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, it's not the department you wanna go cheap on if you've got some dangerous stunts. And we'll talk a little bit about the one that I did on the film, but a lot of people, when I've told them about coming off that horse, they've asked me, weren't you nervous and all that? And of course, to some degree I was, but your experience and the way we talked it through, but more so your experience, you weren't nervous, and that made me not as nervous, because I'm like, well, Brian's reputation to some degree is on the line here too. If I break my neck and die, then it's not going to look good for your career. Well,
I actually had my truck running at the time, so I was ready to scoot. No, I'm just kidding. I have a great photo of you, me, and Michael Polish before you did that stunt, and we're all standing there. You're in wardrobe. You got the whole Samuelson look on. Michael's there, and you guys and me. We're all looking at the camera. I'm the only one that's smiling. You guys are like, you guys have like the death face on, like, and I'm just like, dude, don't worry. It's going to be okay. You're coming off that horse. This is an old school stunt. And it worked perfectly. I mean, we did it just by the numbers, and everything went right, and you did a great job, and you went for it. That's all you can do. Some stunts are, and like I said that day, I said, this is a real stunt. You know what I mean? It's not a lot of guys, like, they fall over a table and they're like, "Wow, you see that stunt I did? I'm putting that on my reel." It's like, yeah, that's boring.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. Yes, it's a stunt, but this was a real stunt involving horses and cable and all that, all that kind of stuff. It was a good one, and you did great, and you didn't get hurt.
Nope.
You didn't get hurt.
It was fun, man. I don't know if you remember this, but when you first came on board, we had a meeting where we went through the whole script, talked about all the different stunts in the script, and when we came to that one, you kind of, you were a little worried about our ability to pull that off, because we knew that the actor wasn't going to do it, And at the time, I think, we're working on a low budget. We're struggling to maybe find the right doubles here and there. And there was at least the discussion of maybe we should, maybe we should change the script a little and not really have him fly off the back of this horse, right? And I don't know if you remember, but I looked at you and I said, Brian, if you think I can double for this 6'5" muscle man, I want to do this stunt.
Yeah.
And then of course we talked about
I was
it.
like, yes, we can do it.
Right. So it was awesome. It was awesome. You and I were really.
I remember.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I remember that meeting well. And I was like, well, we could do, a cable off, off the back of the horse. I'm like, then as soon as I said it, I'm like, shit. I really stepped in it now. It's like, am I going to have to go in there and do it? Because I was thinking I would do it. I've done them before, although I was much younger, but I have no fear of it. So, when I said that, I was like, maybe I opened my mouth too much. And then you said, I'll do it. I'm like, that's good. Let's do it. If you want to do it, I want to do it. And you did it. And I think, we saw the sizzle reel there where they used it, and it looks fantastic. Looks fantastic. I want to shout out to the Schultz wrangling team. I mean, those guys were phenomenal. Maggie Slepian doubling a guy on a horse. I mean, she, a lot of times, when you do that, I was just watching a show the other night, and it's about how they used to paint people down. For black performers, they would paint white guys and all that stuff. And, and then they, of course, we've progressed, and there's tons of black people or people of color, all that kind of stuff now. But, and also we did a lot of gender, like men doubling women and stuff like that when we couldn't find a girl to do the job. And this was the first time I've ever taken a woman to double a man. But she was perfect because he's a very small guy. Obviously, he's 110 pounds and 5 feet. So, it was perfect for her to do it. And hard to find a guy like that who is an excellent horseman like she is. So they all did a fantastic job. I mean, I can't say enough about the whole crew. I want to do more movies with everybody. Everybody was cool. There was no there's no poison pills in a lot of them.
Getting back to our stunt work, unlike a lot of movies you've worked on, besides the stunt writers, you were obviously the coordinator, were kind of the stunt department for that film, right? There wasn't a big team. What was the challenge of that?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was finding doubles. Obviously, it was I mean, we had a group of actors, and I corresponded with all of them, beforehand, through email and stuff, and said, what's your experience with horseback riding, and what's your this and that, weapons and whatnot, and they were all pretty honest. They're very honest, and Tyler was the guy who said, I've never been on a horse in my life. You know what I mean? And it's so refreshing because, usually actors are like, well, yeah, I can ride. I'm an old cowhand. You know what I mean? It's like, so I was impressed with that. So I was finding doubles for those guys just for the riding sequences, because a lot of the death sequences, I mean, weren't, big, elaborate deaths, as it were. I don't want to spoil anything, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not saying that people die in this movie. I'm just saying they might.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. I can't. I forget. I'm not just talking to you. It's like if anybody else hears it, you guys are all under NDAs, whoever's listening. All right. But that was it. And especially on a location like Montana. And again, shout out to the Schultz Wranglers because, Nick Schultz, he got to double the captain. And then John Mars, the armorer, was a totally excellent horseman, obviously. And he was doubling a guy too, and luckily Montana has a lot of cowboys as well, so there were a few extra people to find around there. So, but it was a concern when I first got there. I was like, how am I going to pull this off? You know what I mean? With this kind of deal. And I gotta say, Travis, I didn't know who the hell you were. I was like, is this locations guy? I asked somebody, is it locations? Because you seem to be wearing a lot of hats. And, you're showing people the extras and you're showing props and stuff. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what his position is on this. And then I saw like associate producer. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's the title you give your, producer's girlfriend, So it's like, but I tell you, man, you're my lifelong friend now, and you were a godsend on that show. That's for sure. And you're a hell of a stunt guy.
Yeah, I told my parents that you said that. I told them that you said that, and that you also said, if you wanted, you could actually have a future in the stunt business. And they said no. Yeah. They were like, no, you were not having a future in the stunt business. But it was a great compliment to get.
Well, this was before I saw your 12 westerns. I've seen them all, but I've seen 3 or 4 of them. So, I mean, no, you don't want to do that. You're a filmmaker, man. You want to keep your head intact. You don't want to have as many concussions as I got. You know what I mean? So you start forgetting what happened yesterday. But no, it's you got a career as that filmmaker. And I'll work for you any day.
We will, sir. Absolutely, because I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to do a film with what I call the Dirty Dozen, which would be just my favorite people that I've ever worked with. You, Jeff. It might not be a big crew, but it'll just be the best crew. You know?
Well, that's all for my conversation with stunt legend Brian Christensen. I want to thank him for taking the time to talk to me on the podcast. For our next episode, I'll be interviewing Matthias Hughes, a German actor and bodybuilder that I had the pleasure to work with twice last year. Until then, stay safe out there, and thank you for listening to the podcast.